There is one more question from Sergey. Please, what would be your comment on a new trend in recent analytics? Upon deflation of the USA, a single world economic complex and a single world technological space will be divided into separate regional economical and technological zones with limited product, information exchange, and great restrictions on the physical movement of people between them. Does it mean that Global Predictor fails within the framework of the contemporary United Global Information Field? Does Global Predictor need direct control over their information field to regain stability of his governance? Does GB need to divide the global economy into separate regional economic zones to achieve that?
The issue is not that GB is failing. The issue is that a certain governance scenario is being conducted. At the beginning of the 19th century, Global Predictor realized that civilization on the planet Earth develops beyond the controlled parameters. And accordingly, some corrective measures had to be taken to keep control over governance worldwide. Toward the end of the 19th century, the issue of certain scenarios creation was evident. At that time, a creativity contest was initiated in Great Britain on the topic, what can be done to reformat the world? Within the framework of that contest, a certain method of society's degradation was offered, that is World War, in two stages. They were realized as World War I and World War II of the 20th century. Before World War, they conducted a field experiment in war. And our general of Russian Empire's General Staff's main intelligence directorate, Yedrikhin-Vandam, he was called wrongly geopolitician, was sent to that war. He was not a general at the time. He was just starting his career. And he recognized that process. His prediction was so accurate that all top brass of Russian main intelligence directorate and main artillery directorate, as the most technologically advanced directorate, accumulating all high-tech worldwide, all high-tech industries, already knew that future World War will take place in two stages. In 1916, our generals approached the Tsar, sovereign emperor. If Russia doesn't sign a separate peace treaty with Germany on any terms, we will lose the second stage of World War. But the emperor was eager to serve his foreign master and fight for Great Britain's interests till the last Russian soldier. Generals didn't have any other choice as to activate an option of the October Revolution and sign the separate peace treaty with Germany themselves, implement Russia's industrialization, and get ready for the second stage of World War, World War II. When the Bolsheviks signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, the West realized that the Bolsheviks outsmarted them, along with other actions that were taken by Bolsheviks. But I don't want to talk about it now. We already mentioned it many times, including our works. War and Bolshevism is a natural basis of Russia. I want to talk about the following. The war was a tool to shape the world for future cultural reformation. That was once the focus of an intellectual movement of Pre-Raphaelites. It was the search for a balance point between contemporary technocratic, managerial, and culturally moral development of society. And it was determined that the creation of a new medieval can serve as a possible balance point. In this regard, ISIS is a tool that presents this new medieval in its Eastern Asian variant. Essentially, all countries worldwide must be degraded approximately to the level of the Middle Ages. To achieve that, all interstate unions must be broken. Don't let create such a union as the United States. The United States was created with one idea in mind, to create a world gendarme. But now this world gendarme, its foreign policy interferes with global politics and crashes global governance. The United States creates additional problems in governance for the global predictor, which GP is losing anyway, under the law of time. GP is losing its governance and is trying to find a way out. Look at the fight between the Democrats and the Republicans in the United States. In reality, there is a fight between the US country elite and the global elite, and that fight affects the whole world. We mentioned many times the creation of the European Islamic Caliphate, where foreign alien language, alien culture, alien race, alien nation population will sweep off current European states, countries and nations, and on its ruins create new nations, new languages, new states. But during this process, cultural and educational levels will be sharply decreased. New population will bring archaism, and accordingly all states will be separated. And the most dominant in technological development state will be much easier manipulated than the USA nowadays. If China, it is groomed to be a governance concentration center, and Iran also is being groomed to be a governance concentration center, will dominate in this world, it will be sufficient for China to have a population of 300 million and much less for Iran, as an auxiliary governance concentration center, to govern all countries and nations. Literally all, including prevention from developing to human-type psyche of Chinese population itself. That is why China conducts massive social experiment now, when for a traffic violation by pedestrians, littering on the street as an example, a person is forbidden from a flight on a plane. That person is declared to be unloyal, and state is not going to risk by having him on board. China implements strict social stratification and rigid control of society. But for the governance concentration center to function in this mode, the rest of the world must also be under control. Imagine that you completely roboticize, cheap all population. People obey your orders and laws, but external population continues to follow its cultural traditions. You were not able to take control over them. Who will come on top? There is a movie called Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone. It has an episode. In the city of the future, unfrozen gangster from the past meets policeman from that future. Policeman says, "We are police officers. We are not trained for this kind of violence." But prompter offers him hints. Approach and say sternly, "You must obey me. If you do not obey, then and make a meaningful pause here. So policemen approached the gangster and said what they were supposed to say. And what happened next? Exactly the same will happen with any society, which GP chooses and chip it. Global predictor will destroy himself completely, and the global elite understands it perfectly well. That is why the issue of chip implants stays in hot operative mode, but doesn't implement. GP needs to control all the planet Earth. Otherwise, those uncontrolled people will come and destroy your zombie robot people that obey you. That is why GP gave start to the project to solve this problem by dropping all states to a new medieval mode by means of sharp decrease of technological level, knowledge level, and skills level. That is why education is being destroyed everywhere. To let automated technological lines ensure comfort for the limited chosen ones. In this regard, I will repeat, the movie Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme is remarkable. It shows a technological center with full abundance and dark territory around it, where a human eats a human. A similar situation can be established around the world, where small states will confront each other like medieval states, and they will seek protection from a bigger subject with new weaponry. Russian science fiction writers, the Strugatsky brothers, had a similar scenario. Advanced civilization was giving away swords, and those with swords became more powerful in comparison to swordless ones. But the important thing under that scenario is not to get carried away with the plot, and the global elite know it, so they are playing with it. The essence of current GP politics is destruction of contemporary world order, implementation of a new medieval age into the world, but on a new technological basis, which will be in the hands of power players. Governance concentration centers in China and Iran are created to have this exclusive center of governance. Russia should become a transit zone, intertwined in the United Economic Program, Silk Road, and corridor north-south. Russia as a state must disappear. Dmitry Medvedev works towards that.
It was the last question.
It would seem that today we discussed issues that are already self-evident. They are understandable. But how many discussions they inspired on different political talk shows, between different political experts? But why? Because they don't know how complex social supersystems are governed. They don't know sufficiently general theory of governance and can't identify processes of global significance level that are being conducted by conceptual or ideological powers. When the knowledge is mastered, then all events around the world are an open book. But if one doesn't know basic theory, then he cannot figure out what current events are about. Thus, one becomes a priori a hostage of someone else's governance decisions. If you don't want to be a hostage of someone else's governance decisions, you have to understand the one in a pickle is the one who got the tickle. Accordingly, one has to master himself the knowledge of complex social supersystems governance. Knowledge must be mastered by oneself. No question-answer sessions will do the job. It is only a helping hand in the knowledge mastering process. Everyone has to study himself, read books. Without studying, there will be no success in protection of yours and your family's interests. But I want you to become self-reliant, be able to protect your interests and the interests of your family. I want you to be happy. That is why I insist, study textbooks, study governance science. Be conceptually powerful. Protect your interests and the interests of your family. Peaceful skies over your head. Happiness. Until next time.